Now, he recently called the election a formality, and Rwanda's President Paul Kagame is widely expected to win a third term tonight. There are just two others in the race. After a slew of candidates were barred from running, Kagame has ruled Rwanda for 17 years already. He's overseen a miraculous economic recovery, but is also accused of multiple human rights abuses, as Sanam Chantier now reports.
Long lines at polling stations in some parts of the Rwandan capital. Nationals of the East African country cast their ballot in an election that longtime President Paul Kagame is expected to win. The 59-year-old strongman walked away with 93% of the vote in 2010. Although he stayed tight-lipped on Friday, Kagame has previously said the election is a mere formality. One of his opponents, Frank Habineza of the only permitted opposition party, hailed the process. He had attempted to run for the 2010 presidential election, but his party was unable to register for the vote.
It's a very good step forward for democracy in Rwanda, because it's the first time an opposition party is allowed to be on the ballot paper. After we've struggled for 8 years, this is a very big step forward. We hope that we build on this foundation to make Rwanda much better.
Neither him nor independent Philippe Paimana are seen as a significant threat. Kagame, who has held office since 2000, remains popular for presiding over rapid economic recovery. He has led Rwanda with a steady hand following the genocide 2 decades ago.
I'm going to vote for the person who has taken Rwanda forward and will continue to do so.
Critics, meanwhile, accuse Kagame of widespread human rights abuses and suppression of perceived opponents.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Peter Mutabaruka. He's the co-founder and spokesperson for the group Peace in Rwanda 2017. Thanks for joining us here on France24 tonight. And as we just heard in that report, Rwanda is a rare success story in Africa. Poverty is falling. Health is improving. Why is another term for Paul Kagame a problem?
Hi, thank you for having me. This is something, as you mentioned, is a rare case in Rwanda, but something which is not rare is a similarity between what's happening in Rwanda and what's happening in your previous report about Venezuela and many other places where we have strong men who essentially do not want to give up power. Rwanda is a country where, as everyone knows, has been through a lot of problems, some unprecedented problems happened in Rwanda, the genocide in 1994 and many other things which have been reported by many organizations. But what's not unique about Rwanda is the need for democracy that the people of Rwanda need. Now, what Kagame, as you mentioned in your report, has said is that this is just a formality. And given all the things that the government claims to be successes, be it the economic growth, be it the schools and the hospitals, this does not then subtract from the need for the people to be able to pick their leaders and to choose their own futures because the government says that they have to go with what the government says. And just to add on to what is called the success story of Rwanda, it can be noted by many people who followed Rwanda before Rwanda became in the limelight, that Rwanda, even before Paul Kagame, was a success story in Rwanda. It was called the Singapore of Rwanda. Before this government, the last government, Rwanda was also held to be a success story in the region. And so this is not something that is unique to Paul Kagame, and it's in fact questionable how much success has been in Rwanda given the hunger and the suffering which is in the population, which I think and many people believe to be calculated in order to keep the population subdued by the government.
You just drew parallels with the situation in Venezuela. There has been huge international criticism of the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. There has been very little international criticism of Paul Kagame. Why do you think that is?
One thing is the criticism of Kagame is somewhat muted because in order for people to be able to criticize the government, they need to have access to the truth or to the reality of the situation which is in the country. Rwanda is unique in the sense that it's essentially a police state, probably one that is most so, maybe only comparable to some countries such as North Korea. It's impossible for people to get access to what's happening in Rwanda, apart from what is said or the figures which are given by the government. You can run reports where people come on camera and they say that they want Kagame to continue. And so this, therefore, is taken as primary source material for a lot of commentators to say that people want Kagame to continue, but this is not the case, because there's a fear and there's an atmosphere of fear in the country which cannot allow people to criticize the government, because they know the consequences which come with criticism. People get thrown in jail, many others are murdered, executed, and many others, they lose their livelihood, be it being kicked out of schools or losing their jobs because they are criticizing or seen to endorse criticism of the government. So this is the reason why the parallels stop there, where there's a lot of criticism for other countries such as Venezuela and very little for Rwanda, because many people do not know what's really happening in Rwanda. Only few people who are outside, who have lived in Rwanda, who have worked for Kagame, under Kagame since '94, and who have managed to run and leave the country, can say the reality of the situation in Rwanda. Well, and this is why it's very muted. But it's growing, and people are knowing what's happening increasingly.
Well, right, I was going to say Human Rights Watch has been quite vocal about what it calls human rights abuses going on in Rwanda, as has Amnesty International. Kagame has a lot of control over the official institutions in Rwanda, and the opposition parties have complained that they weren't allowed to campaign in this election properly. But is there an online movement? Is there more of an underground movement, particularly among young people, against Paul Kagame, who are pushing for change?
Indeed, yes, there is one, and I'm leading one, as you mentioned in your opening remarks about myself. And this, however promising it may be, it can only remain that unless people in Rwanda are allowed to go and freely demonstrate or express how they really feel. We feel that the situation in Rwanda at the moment, people are tired, and people, they do want to go out and to express how they feel. But many people are scared as to the consequences of this. As I mentioned, many people are, they know that going out on the street perhaps and even demonstrating against the government would result in their death at the most, or in their livelihoods changing. So what we are now trying to do is, as well as doing online movements and trying to mobilize people abroad, as well as trying to lobby governments and news organizations, many of whom have been banned, such as the BBC, that have been banned in the country in Rwanda, and many other human rights organizations have been banned. We are trying to see how we can get the interest to grow in Rwanda and allow people to feel somehow that there is safety in them going on the street, that the eyes of the world will be watching. And if anything was to happen, then it's clear that the government is oppressing its people.
Okay, Peter Mutabaruka, thank you very much indeed. Well, moving now to the United States, where the Attorney General says